Welcome to Could Be Pretty Cool News, the podcast where we dive into the exciting world of creative entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Casey, and together we'll embark on a journey to explore this dynamic ecosystem from multiple angles, including academia, research and data, community building, and compelling personal narratives from creative entrepreneurs themselves. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered as we uncover the stories and strategies behind building successful creative ventures. It's time to discover why the world of creative entrepreneurship could be pretty cool. Excuse me, friends. If you're anything like me, you're currently in the throes of the dreaded Georgia pollen season. The time of year when our sinuses seemingly wage an all-out war against the beautiful blossoms that paint our state in a vibrant shade of green and gold. But as they say in the entertainment biz, the show must go on. And there's no one better equipped to lead us off than our first guest, Randy Davidson of Georgia Entertainment. Randy is the founder of this leading source of news and insights for Georgia's thriving film, music, broadcast, and video gaming industries. Not only does he help cross-pollinate opportunities across these diverse creative fields, but he also facilitates crucial connections between industry professionals and key government stakeholders. In other words, he's a true maestro at cultivating the perfect ecosystem for the Peach State's entertainment landscape to be able to truly flourish. So, Randy, welcome to Could Be Pretty Cool News. We are so excited to get to talk to you. Big fans over here of what you do. And I guess for our listeners who don't know what you do, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about Georgia Entertainment.
So I'm Randy Davidson, and I'm founder and CEO of Georgia Entertainment. And we started Georgia Entertainment in 2016. And my background before that is online media and publishing. And so I had been doing publications that focused on other industry segments. And I had a couple of friends say, "Hey, no one's really talking about this film industry in Georgia. It's going to be something big." And only the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and the Atlanta Business Chronicle are coming in and out with various stories, but nobody's really dedicated to it. So it was fortunate timing. And since that time, as of today, we're a very active publication covering film, music, arts, gaming development, esports, fashion, all day, every day. And we have events that are around Georgia. Our core belief is that it's primarily benefited Atlanta, but it is Georgia's industry. And we'll talk a little bit about that maybe more later, but it has definitely been a wild ride.
So tell us a little bit about some of the focus areas of Georgia Entertainment. Of course, a lot of entertainment publications, they talk about, the stars and the celebrities and the scandals.
Yeah.
But what type of news does Georgia Entertainment provide?
So we kind of call ourselves advocacy media. So that's an interesting term because we cover everything, anything that impacts film and entertainment and the creative industries in Georgia. We cover it, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. However, we are not the TMZ of Georgia. We're not looking for the local superstars at the Starbucks and taking pictures. We're a business focused publication. So our primary goal is to cover the business angles and the impacts and jobs and employment opportunities. And along with that, in Georgia, of course, is monitoring tax legislation and regulations on the statewide front, local incentives that various counties and cities have around the state of Georgia that further facilitate what we believe is this coming tidal wave of growth, not just for Georgia, but throughout the world of creative opportunities for careers.
We would love to dive deeper into that. That's exactly what the purpose of this podcast is to provide creative entrepreneurs, independent artists with different avenues to start learning about what we also believe is a tidal wave of creative entrepreneurship, the creator economy. And so, if you wouldn't mind, just from your view as someone who is paying a lot of attention to the Georgia industry specifically, what do you mean by the tidal wave that's coming?
In my generation coming up in the late 80s, as I was graduating high school and from South Georgia originally, you know, kids of my generation, the youth of my generation, our creative minds were suppressed, not because our parents didn't love us or what have you, but writing skills, drawing, fashion leanings, and things like that, those were not encouraged as they are today. Back then, we were pointed to traditional education. I was encouraged to be a lawyer, accountant, learn a trade. These were the career paths that we had to go. So we were never able to let go and let loose of what I think is in everybody's mind, their creative ability to tell stories. I mean, we even dream. We dream in stories. Those are stories that we're able to tell and express. So we're born to be creative. That's my opinion. And there's smarter people than me that can prove that, but I'll just say that that's what I believe. Today, though, you can't suppress it any longer. All one has to do is walk around, see what the young folks are doing, see the things that they're involved with, find out the brands that they're committed to or watching or what have you. And that's where you get this creative economy. So today, thankfully, and one of the things that we do at our in our events and in our coverage, and I'm certainly an advocate of the creative economy, we're letting these young folks see that you can make a big difference and you can create. In my time, when I was in high school, if you were in the art class or you were in the band or you were this, there was a stigma of arts that is unnecessary. And we feel like that tidal wave is going to take over a great thing for society and the world.
So, with that, you started Georgia Entertainment in 2016, and you're on your way almost to your 10-year anniversary. In the years that you have had your platform, what are some of the changes that you've seen in the Georgia industry that you're kind of like, oh, yeah, this is different from when we first started?
Well, I can tell you, so first I'll take you back to something that I didn't mention earlier. We were initially called Georgia Film News. At the end of 2016, there was a big push by a bunch of people in Georgia's music industry to try to get some legislation and some incentives to encourage touring and composing and origination in Georgia, to take that business away from Nashville and Texas and other places. So we renamed ourselves. We said, well, this is not about film, and this won't be about film. This will be about something bigger than that. And the word entertainment, really was something that we felt was all encompassing. In Georgia, you asked me what has changed in Georgia since we started in 2016. Georgia's stance as a state with the credit and incentive for spending on film, that has driven billions of dollars to this state. And beyond film, that has driven tons of other activity in arts, fashion, music, all areas of the creative space, especially arts too. So Georgia has become this mecca for sort of, having an economy that's not available elsewhere. I'll use this example for your audience. There's some states that don't really participate as much or they're not known as economically thriving. Georgia's been number one 10 years in a row on many metrics. That's by Site Selector magazine, and the state touts that. We have a very diverse economy. We have life sciences, renewable energy sectors, fintech, and the creative industries is another one. We're kind of a mutual fund of various segments. And a mutual fund, as everybody understands, is a good thing because it helps you hedge risk. Georgia has that. But a state like Mississippi or Iowa or Utah or some of these other states, they sit there and they receive whatever's happening or they're content. Georgia's never been a content state. We want to participate in this. So the creative tidal wave is agnostic. It's coming over the world. Our position is that we want Georgia to be in a place to receive it and to be a place that benefits from the unsuppressing of the creative mind.
So, speaking of your role in the creative industry as an independent journalist, as an independent media platform, with all of the fascinating things that have been happening in journalism, media, news in the past couple of months, why do you think having a journalistic platform to cover the entertainment industry from a business perspective is important for the industry as a whole?
Well, I tell you, it's a constant educational process. The truth of the matter is that in order for anything to really take off, like transportation, from horse to car, from train, if you think about any real big transformation that's happened in technology, the internet and things like that, the government is, for better or for worse, involved with our role as covering this, and then my role personally as an evangelist and an advocate of it. So I happen to own a journalistic publication, but every chance I get at our events, and as you know, in our commentary, we are in favor of this. But there is a definite role that government plays in driving and facilitating something that is taking place that we can incentivize, a big trend. And we feel like this is it. But you have to keep in mind, Georgia legislators, just like in other states too, they are dealing with transportation, they're dealing with veterans affairs, they're dealing with Medicaid, they're dealing with creative industries, they're dealing with this and that and the other. So they are involved in many, many areas of policy and regulations and so forth, and safety issues and other social issues. So our role as a publication is to just make sure that we get in front of and we can educate and share about this area and do our job to make sure that our policymakers, even on the local level, I'm talking about the mayor, the county commissioners, they all have to be involved to understand that, yes, we need to layer up our economy. We don't need to be heavily invested or weighted in one area or another. This creative industries is what our children want. If we don't embrace this, we lose our children to other states. We lose them to other communities that will embrace this.
Yes, I can say off the record, I attended, it was like the Georgia Gala y'all did. Governor Kemp was the honoree. Was this October, November? Am I?
We did one in December. That was our
Was
big
it?
one.
Maybe it was December.
Maybe.
Yeah, and I just remember I met a senator there who was just like, "Yeah, we like you entertainers. Here's my card if you need anything." It was just really weird to be in a space where you had film people that I knew, I had video game people that I knew, and like mayors and city councilmen who were just all kind of intermingling. And, it almost felt like this is how it should be, but there aren't too many spaces where that is facilitated right now.
You hit the nail on the head. With our events, last year, we had over 2,000 people attend our events from around Georgia. We did 12 events last year from Valdosta, Rome, Warner Robins, Columbus, Augusta, 200 or so at each one. And we had over 100 of our elected legislators that attended those events. Nearly half of our elected officials from around the state came and they mingled in with filmmakers, storytellers, makeup artists, VFX, post production folks. And when you have that intermingling, they're like, wow, this is real. Because they can look at study and data and research points and research analysis and commentary. But when they see real families in their districts that are benefiting and looking to their legislator to embrace this area that was once a stigma, and in many cases, these legislators are of my generation. So it was a stigma. This creative arts thing, that meant you had something wrong with you or you leaned a certain way or whatever. But it's not that. It's a career choice that our children are making.
And speaking of data and research studies and analysis, last year Georgia Entertainment debuted a print edition that I believe is a quarterly edition that featured research and studies about different aspects of Georgia entertainment. I'd love to pick your brain about how that came about as someone who started off digital native to then move to print.
Yeah, that's interesting, and interesting, Casey, that you recognize that because that was a bold move. You know, in my brain, I had been wanting to go into print. I've never been, and it's not just because of my generation, but print still has credibility. But last year, especially last year, as our business has revved up and as we are already riding the creative tidal wave as a company because we're covering it, we just happen to be in the right place at the right time. So we decided to go into print. So it's a real unique printed product. 70% content. We got 30 people to support it. The first edition was 100 pages. So that's a very lopsided ad support versus content, which our partners help make that happen. And then all of the pieces in there are about this education process that we're talking about. So we touched on gaming, touches on entertainment tourism, which is very good for us to measure and to keep track of. There's articles in there about placemaking, creating towns, and what your city can do to be a place that creatives want to come live in. So we did that. And then we did a unique thing. We put the names of the legislators, they each got their own personal copy with their name gold plated on the cover. So we had the governor's name on his and the other legislators' names on theirs. And we took them and gave them each to them personally because we wanted them to see that we were serious about it. So it was a general publication meant to give more longevity, additional credibility in another medium about what we'd already been saying, but it was also to really advocate as well to our legislators.
What an amazing idea. That's so smart. I guess really my final question for you, again, you are approaching your 10-year anniversary as not just a publication, but now as an event company, as you're doing so many different things. This is a time for like any sneak peek of like 10-year anniversary plans? Are there any products or things that people can come to expect? Or are you just sort of, going with the flow right now?
I will tell you this: there's not anything that's real big on the horizon that is earth shattering. But I will tell you that something that happened in January that is earth shattering, and changed me for probably the next few years. We went to Sundance in Colorado in Park City, and we went there to hold an event that would stand up Georgia and show other filmmakers around the world what we were about. We had 250 people at max capacity at our event and 450 on standby that we couldn't get in. So it opened my eye, and these were non-Georgians, and they were coming to hear. Our event was called Georgia from Script to Screen, and we wanted to tell them about the infrastructure that we have here. We wanted to tell them about the culture we have here and the friendly way that we can help them make money with their creative projects. That's film only. I feel like what you will see out of us, hoping that we are fortunate enough to gain the support of our partners and supporters, we've got to get out of Georgia because we want to tell this story to the world. We want to go to Cannes. We want to go to South by South. We want to go to Toronto, to the Toronto Film Festival. We want to go and tout that Georgia is a place that can be where creative dreams can be made and where creative dreamers' dreams can come true. So that's probably something that I hope that I can look back on this interview and we will be maybe talking to you from Cannes or somewhere around the world where we are showing Georgia as the leading, and as I say in our footer and about our company, Georgia is the creative and entertainment capital of the world. Data supports it in my heart already, but data is certainly going to support that into the future.
All right, folks, get ready to have your heartstrings tugged because we've got a very special guest joining us today. She's an early childhood specialist, a master puppeteer, and a true creative dynamo, and she's here to share her passion for inspiring the littlest members of our creative community. It's my pleasure to welcome Miss Ashley to the show. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever I see a skilled puppeteer at work, I can't help but feel like a little kid again. There's just something so magical about watching those colorful, expressive characters come to life, dancing and singing and captivating us with their boundless imagination. And that's exactly the kind of wonder and delight that Miss Ashley brings to everything she does.
My name is Ashley Jefferson, otherwise known as Miss Ashley. A lot of people call me the early childhood enthusiast and play advocate because I love early childhood, but you can call me Miss Ashley. My business is Nguzo Babies. It's a children's literacy and cultural edutainment company that uses puppetry arts for storytelling. We make learning fun with the best puppets that teach and the best stories that reach. Miss Ashley. I would say Miss Ashley started as a very young 5-year-old who was in love with The Little Mermaid as a child. So very dramatic. I loved the arts. I loved to sing and dance. And so this persona of just entertaining and a childlike whimsy, I would say, about myself, I've always had. But I carried that with myself through work. I've worked with children for over 25 years now. And so this creation of having the arts blended with early childhood has just always been in my spirit. So Miss Ashley was always there, but she is here now in a different form doing puppetry arts with young children. As a child, I remember watching things like Sesame Street, but what I really fell in love with was The Puzzle Place. And that was a children's puppet show about friends that were in the classroom, and they all came from different backgrounds. And I've always also loved people. So watching The Puzzle Place for me was just this, oh my goodness, who are these characters and their storylines? And so I knew very, very young that I enjoyed puppets because they were just such a cool way to tell stories. And so I carried that with me even into adulthood. I would do Parent and Me classes, so like music and movement classes, where we'd use puppets, and even like some of the classes that we do were just specifically about puppets. So between that and then going to different puppet shows, I've just always been fascinated with it. And for a lot of early childhood teachers, they love using puppets in the classroom. And so I think it's just always been there in just different forms. So now I'm using them in a way that I can teach more children with my show. I was a teacher for over 25 years, but I was in the space of being a nanny, being a preschool teacher, being a family helper, event planner. Everything with early childhood you can think of, I've probably done. So I decided that when I had my son, I wanted to create a really unique experience for the education that he had, just because I valued early childhood education in the sense of learning through play. I valued cultural experiences because I love people. And when I started my own program for him, it was so he could stay with me and I could create something totally different. And a lot of people would call it an African-centered program. So I created this curriculum that went along with it that you could purchase digitally. And essentially it was based off of the principles of Kwanzaa. So with Kwanzaa, we're talking about unity, doing your best, working together, helping your neighborhoods grow, sharing your purpose. So all of these principles I just thought were so important for children to learn, and also learn about different cultures of the world, of the diaspora. So that was really important to me. So it started with that curriculum that I sold online, and I had that one. I wrote it like when he was 1. I was still nursing. He hadn't quite turned 1 yet. So I was nursing and just writing it and putting it together, and I was so proud of it. And I had this digital product, and it was really cool because people were purchasing it. But then it got to a point where I said, I think I could take this and make it more alive. And so I said, how can I personify the principles of Kwanzaa? So now we have Nguzo. So when we talk about Kwanzaa, we're saying Nguzo Saba, which is the 7 pillars, which represent the principles. Out of that are the 7 characters of Nguzo babies. So essentially, it's principle babies. And so each of them represents a different principle. So we do a lot of different directions with the show, talking about the different cultures of the world, the Black experience of the world, storylines of how we can be better friends, better ourselves, better our communities. And yeah, I think it's just been a really cool experience to see what I started with a simple curriculum that I just wanted for my son and his friends, and then just have it evolve into a full-on show where we tour lots of different schools and libraries and events. It's been awesome. Having started a micro school, especially one that was as unique as mine, where we do things like outdoor education and we're talking about being African-centered and it's for younger children, there was a lot that I was learning from the business side of things. And as much as I wanted to share my message with more children, it was kind of hard to do with the school. So I knew that I had to pick one or the other. So that meant that I would have to stop the school. So that was really the driving force as far as making sure that I was getting my business acumen in order and learning more about the business structure, because I could see what I was doing with the micro school in ways that I could improve it. I also knew in the back of my mind that Nguzo Babies was a program that's like no other. Yes, there's Sesame Street, but even the way that we incorporate language into it, and I understand my audience and knowing that they need this, I knew immediately that this was a business that I could monetize, and if I studied and did the work, that I could really turn it into something that was long-lasting for me. So there's a couple of different parts that happen with Nguzo Babies, depending on if you're watching online or if you're in person. So online, there's a plethora of things that we do, and I always say our target audience is about 2 to 4 years old, but we have other things that are 3 to 6 years old. So if you're watching a story time live, which I do weekly, you can see me using the puppets and then reading a story and singing some songs. Then we have an element where we have a podcast, and that's usually for the older children. So this is telling the story of Nguzo Babies and their interactions in what I call Little Town, which is where they live. And the idea is they put these candles into the Kinara. And when they put the candles in the Kinara, they're taken off into Magic Land. And the storyline within the storyline is based off of different folk tales. It's switched up a little bit just so that the characters can be more involved into the storyline. So it's really cool that way. But if you go to a live show, there's going to be a lot of music. There's going to be a lot of dancing, a lot of fun, bubbles, parachutes, all of that. So there are a lot of different ways that Nguzo Babies goes. So you're going to have fun regardless of however you experience it, because Nguzo Babies is definitely an experience. For my family, if you know me and you heard what I was talking about, everyone was like, this is it for you. This is what you were supposed to be doing. Because again, as I've journeyed through early childhood education, I've done a lot of different things that I've loved and some things that I'm like, I want to restructure. But as soon as Nguzo Babies came into the forefront, they could see it. It speaks to so much of who I am that it was a long time coming. More like, finally, Ashley, you got it together. But anybody that's new to it, they're like, oh my goodness. Either if you're a business person, you're like, this is $1 billion idea. Or if you're a mom and you're saying this is so needed. So I understand from all aspects how Nguzo Babies is really just such a great initiative, and there's so much power behind it, whether it's for myself or whether it's the people around me. So it's been amazing and well received across the board, honestly. There are 7 characters in this show. There is writing, there is singing, there is dancing, there's so many components to it. And as of right now, I am a solopreneur. And while I'll have contractors that may come in with the puppeteering, even for the mascots, a lot of the shows I've done by myself. And it's been such a journey for me. I think it's been a really rewarding experience, though, in learning exactly what needs to be done. Because when we talk about business, many of us want to scale. And that means that you're going to bring other people on. And if you don't know how to delegate or know exactly what needs to be done in every aspect of your business, you're going to fail. I completely understand sleepless nights. I understand when I'm exhausted and I don't feel like getting this done or this done, but it has to be done. And I had to learn it, because without that, I can't have people come in and then not know what I need them to do. So it's been such a tremendous learning experience for me me and being able to go through that. And then now at the point where I've been able to say, hey, I know exactly what I need for this job or this job. So it's been really useful. I know a lot of people don't care for that portion of it because it is a lot of work, but I've always had grit since I was a child. That's just always been my thing. If there's something that I want it done, I'll work at it. And I love it all so much. It is tiring, but I love every aspect of what I do. I don't want to necessarily do it all by myself, but I really have fallen in love with the work that I've done with Nguzo babies. So that's been a huge part of me being able to work through all of this as we grow. I think the other thing is while I do consider myself a solopreneur, I've also been able to take advantage of cohorts where I've, aligned myself with other business owners so that I can learn what they're doing and we can all kind of lean on each other. And this idea of, even though I am by myself, I'm not entirely by myself. When I'm ready, I can get the people that I need on board. So it's been a learning process that was very much needed for what I'm doing. The birth of Nguzo Babies really started with the first cohort that I had joined because I had started the cohort with the idea of growing my micro school. And in talking more about my passions and what I wanted to do, that was when Nguzo Babies, the concept really came to life because again, I had this curriculum and I wanted to do more with it, but then the idea of Nguzo Babies came up. So that was really interesting because it was a time where it was happening during the pandemic and I think a lot of people were reevaluating what it was that they were doing and what they wanted out of life. And so it was perfect timing for me. And I've been with them since 2020 in growing the entire concept of Nguzo Babies. Now, some of the other cohorts I've participated in have been for pitch competitions, which is a whole other ballgame, really ironing out who you are as a business, your elevator pitch, which I have mastered, and just getting your financials in order and all of that, and being able to present it to people who have never heard of you, who have never heard of your business, and really buckling down on who you are and then figuring out your system. So I've done 2 of those cohorts. I'm in another now, and I've done pitch competitions. And while you always want to make sure that your business is profiting in terms of what you offer, you want to make sure you have the income from sales and people buying and your customers. At the same time, it definitely helps to have outside help to invest in your company. So I definitely took advantage. I've won some competitions, I've lost some, even those were learning experiences. But I think it's really good practice, if anything, to say this is the work that I want to do and I stand in it. And when people give you a minute or 30 seconds even to say who you are and what you do, you're going to iron that out real quick. So when I hear this idea of a creator economy, and I think there's a lot of people who have different definitions of it, I think this is really an amazing tool to be able to take your work and capitalize off of it, which in a way that hasn't been done before. And I think that's super amazing. I will say, for people that haven't been able to necessarily navigate this new world that we're in, I think that might be where naysayers come into play, but you always want to, just because it's new, I think there's just a hesitance in saying, I'm not a content creator. I don't want to call myself that. And at the end of the day, I have content that people consume. I still stand on business. I still stand in what we do. No matter what you call me, you know you're going to call me Nguzo Babies at the end of the day. And that's all I care about. It has definitely been a process in studying, because I'm a studier. I study everybody. I study people who are not in my lane in terms of working with children, early childhood education. I think it's important to do that because I think people are just in a really cool space to come up with ideas to entertain people when there was so much gatekeeping. And as a performer, I would go on auditions for stuff. And now I'm able to make my own lane and find ways to capitalize off it. So I think it's incredible. I always go back to, and I think this is pretty much a standard business thing, what is your why? Why do you want to do it? Is it about you just want something on the side to do? And that could be very well a good enough reason to start this process. But understand, once you're trying to monetize, it is a different level of discipline and work ethic that you have to have. And again, it's a lot of studying because you have to learn from what other people have been doing. So definitely understand your why and try it out and see how you like it, because just because you have a passion doesn't mean you have to necessarily use it in this way. So just jump in and then try it. If you are working towards, let's say, trying to be full-time with it, I would definitely say, as far as finances are concerned, make sure you have yourself covered, because as with any business, you're going to have to put money into it. You may not think so right away, and there are some people who were able to start with just their phone camera, and that's fine. But there's going to be a lot of time that's put into this, and you may not see the rewards right away. You probably won't see the rewards right away. So if you can find a way to just at least have a cushion, whether you have money saved or, you change your arrangements or you have another job that you do, just understand that it's not going to come right away. I think a lot of people who step into business, they think that it just pops off, and maybe it does, but usually something like that doesn't last as long. If you want something that has a strong foundation, make sure you step into it with this idea that you're probably going to have to do more work than you would have liked to begin with. I'd also say start thinking about products or whatever it is your services are as well. It is about content, but at the same time, you always want to have extra things, multiple streams coming in. So if there's a way, if you talk about art, maybe look at ways that you can do affiliate marketing, or if you have paintbrushes or something else that you can sell along with it. Always from the beginning, think ahead in that way. The last thing I would say is build your mailing list, because I am very active on social media, not all of them, most of them. And the algorithm changes. The algorithm is really about your audience, but that's a whole other topic. But you never know when something will be taken away, whether your account gets shut down. And the last thing that you need is to be focusing on one area and you didn't build your community. That's really important. Build your community. Give people multiple ways to connect with you, and make sure it comes back directly to you, so that no matter what is happening with the other social media platforms, you'll always have a way to stay connected with your audience and keep them updated on what you're doing.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Until next time, we encourage you to continue nurturing your process. Farewell, and may all of your creative endeavors flourish. Could Be Pretty Cool News is a Could Be Pretty Cool original production that was workshopped as a part of the 2023 Google News Initiative Pre-Launch Lab. This episode was edited by Trinity Jackson. Our executive producer and host is Casey Willis, and our production coordinator is Liz Moore. The original theme music was composed by Camille Stennis, and our cover art was designed by Aaliyah Johnson. Special thanks to our guests. To find out more about them, you can visit our newsletter at couldbeprettycoolnews.substack.com. Thank you for listening.